Imagine this. You're sitting by a fire thousands of years ago. No matches, no lighters, just a little pile of burning wood you fought hard to keep alive. And then, by pure accident, you notice something strange. The wood didn't just burn away into nothing. Some of it turned into these black, crumbly chunks. And when you toss those chunks back into the flames, something incredible happens. They burn hotter. They burn longer. They burn almost twice as fierce as the wood ever did. You just stumbled onto one of the most powerful secrets in human history. And you didn't even know it yet. Stay till the end, because the last part of this story is going to completely change how you think about ancient humans. Before we start, here's a question for you. No lighter, no matches. Just wood and a rock. Could you build a fire tonight? And would you ever guess burning wood twice makes it burn hotter? Write your answer in the comments. Now let's find out what ancient humans actually did. You're going to find out that the same black rock and burnt wood that powered your ancestors' first real fires is the same stuff that later built entire empires, powered giant machines, and honestly, shaped the entire modern world you're living in right now. All of it starts with people who didn't even have a word for chemistry, just poking at their campfire and going, wait, what is that? So today, we're diving into one of the most underrated discoveries in human history, how ancient humans found coal and charcoal, and why it mattered so much more than anyone realized at the time. Let's rewind. Way, way back. Before cities, before farming, before writing even existed. Early humans already had one massive advantage over every other animal on the planet: fire. But here's the thing people don't think about. Keeping a fire alive back then was brutal work. You couldn't just flick a switch. You had to constantly feed it wood, watch it, protect it from rain, wind, and running out in the middle of the night while predators lurked in the dark. Fire wasn't just warmth. It was survival, protection, and the difference between eating cooked meat and eating raw meat that could make you sick. Now picture this scene. A group of early humans has been keeping a fire going for days, maybe weeks, in the same spot. The wood keeps getting used, burned, replaced. But one day, someone notices the leftover pieces at the bottom of the ash pile look different. They're not fully turned to ash. They're black, hard, lightweight little chunks. Out of curiosity, or maybe just because they're bored, someone tosses one of those chunks back into the fire. And the fire changes. It doesn't just burn, it roars. The heat jumps. The flame holds steady for way longer than a regular piece of wood ever could. That chunk was charcoal. And without knowing any science at all, that person had just discovered one of the most efficient fuel sources on Earth. Here's the wild part. Charcoal isn't something you find lying around in nature, ready to use. It's actually wood that's been burned in a very specific way. If wood burns with plenty of air, it just turns into ash. But if you burn wood slowly, with limited air, something different happens. The water and gases trapped inside the wood get cooked out, and what's left behind is almost pure carbon. That's charcoal. And pure carbon burns incredibly hot. Ancient humans didn't understand any of that chemistry, obviously, but they understood results. And the result was obvious. Charcoal made fire stronger. So they started doing it on purpose. They'd smother burning wood with dirt or ash to cut off the air, let it smolder instead of blaze, and then dig out these treasured chunks of charcoal once it cooled. This wasn't some rare accident happening once in a lifetime. Groups all over the world, completely disconnected from each other, in Africa, in Asia, in Europe, stumbled onto the exact same trick. That's how powerful and how obvious the benefit was once you saw it work. Now here's where it gets even crazier. Charcoal wasn't just a better campfire fuel, it became the key that unlocked an entirely new era for humanity. The ability to work with metal. Think about it like this. A regular wood fire can get hot, sure. Maybe enough to cook your dinner or keep you warm on a freezing night. But it is nowhere near hot enough to melt metal out of rock. Metal ore just sits there, stubborn, refusing to give up the shiny material trapped inside it. But charcoal? Charcoal burns hot enough to actually pull metal out of raw ore. Suddenly, ancient humans weren't just cooking food and staying warm. They were melting copper, then bronze, then eventually iron. Stop and really think about what that means. Every sword, every plow, every tool that changed how humans farmed, fought, and built cities, all of it traces back to someone accidentally noticing that burnt wood chunks made their fire hotter. One curious observation around a campfire eventually led to entire civilizations built on metal tools and weapons. That's not an exaggeration. That's literally how the timeline works. But charcoal was only half the story. There was another black fuel out there, hiding in plain sight, and it took humans a lot longer to fully figure it out. Coal. Unlike charcoal, which you have to make yourself by burning wood, coal is just there, sitting in the ground. Sometimes it's buried deep, but sometimes it's sitting right on the surface, exposed after a landslide, a riverbank erosion, or a cliffside crumbling away. Coal formed from ancient plants and trees that died millions of years ago, got buried under layers of mud and rock, and slowly, under massive pressure and heat, turned into this dense, dark, energy-packed rock. Now imagine you're an ancient human walking along, and you spot these strange black rocks poking out of a hillside. They don't look like normal stone. They're lighter, kind of shiny in places, almost like they're waiting to do something. And out of pure curiosity, someone tosses one into their fire. At first, maybe nothing seems to happen. Coal can be stubborn to light with just a wood fire, but if that fire is already hot enough, if there's already a bed of burning coals underneath, that black rock catches. And once it catches, it doesn't let go. It burns slower than wood, it burns hotter, and it can burn for hours without needing constant attention. For people used to babysitting a wood fire every few minutes, this must have felt like magic. Here's something that'll blow your mind. Historians have found evidence that people were using coal for fire thousands of years ago, way earlier than most people assume. This wasn't some modern industrial invention. Ancient communities in parts of Asia were already burning coal for warmth and cooking long before anyone thought to build a steam engine or a factory. They found it, they tested it, and they realized this stuff works better than wood in a lot of ways. But here's the twist. For a very long time, coal was seen as this weird, almost suspicious rock. Some ancient people burned it out of necessity, especially in places where wood was scarce. But it also had a nasty side. Burning coal produces smoke that's thicker, darker, and smellier than wood smoke. Indoors, without proper airflow, that smoke could genuinely make you sick. So while some communities embraced coal early on, out of pure necessity, because trees were running out, others avoided it, sticking to wood and charcoal whenever they could. Think about how different your life would be if you had to make this choice every single day. Do you use the fuel that's easier to find but might choke you with smoke? Or do you spend hours chopping wood and slow burning it into charcoal just to breathe a little easier? That was a real, everyday decision for people thousands of years ago. Fuel wasn't something you just picked up at a store. It was a survival puzzle you had to solve with your own hands, your own labor, and a lot of trial and error. And this is where the story gets really interesting, because coal and charcoal weren't just competing with each other. Together, they quietly built the foundation for almost everything that came after. As populations grew and forests started shrinking from centuries of cutting down trees for fuel and charcoal making, something had to give. You can't keep burning down an entire forest forever. Wood became more expensive, harder to find, and less practical for large-scale use. Coal, on the other hand, was sitting underground in massive quantities, just waiting to be dug up. So slowly, entire regions began shifting their dependence from wood and charcoal toward coal, especially as blacksmiths, metalworkers, and eventually early industries needed more and more fuel to keep their fires burning hot day after day without stripping every tree from the land. This shift didn't happen overnight. It took generations, but every single step, from that first curious human tossing a black chunk into a fire to entire towns built around coal mining, traces back to the same basic instinct. Humans noticing something unusual, testing it, and refusing to ignore what worked. Now here's the part that should really mess with your head a little. We like to imagine ancient humans as primitive, as people just barely scraping by, hunting animals, and hiding in caves. But the discovery of charcoal and coal proves something completely different. These people were constantly experimenting. They were observing tiny details, like the difference between ash and unburned wood chunks, and asking questions. Why does this burn differently? Why does this last longer? What happens if I do this on purpose instead of by accident? That curiosity, that refusal to just accept things as they are, is exactly the same instinct that later built furnaces, steam engines, and eventually the entire industrial world. It didn't start in a laboratory. It started around a fire, with someone who noticed something strange and decided to poke at it instead of walking away. So here's the powerful part, the reflection I promised you at the beginning. Every single piece of technology you use today, your phone charging on electricity, the metal in your car, the tools that built your house, all of it can trace a thread backward through history to ancient humans messing around with fire. Not scientists in lab coats, not engineers with blueprints, just regular people, cold, hungry, and curious, who noticed a strange black chunk in their fire pit and decided to find out what it could do. That's the thing about human progress. It rarely starts with a grand plan. It starts with someone paying attention to something small that everyone else ignored. Ancient humans didn't know they were laying the foundation for metalworking, for industry, for the modern world. They just knew that this weird black stuff made their fire better, and that was enough reason to keep using it. And honestly, that same instinct is still alive in you right now. Every time you get curious about how something works, every time you notice something strange and can't help but investigate it, you're doing exactly what your ancestors did around that very first fire. The tools have changed. The curiosity hasn't. So next time you strike a match, flip a light switch, or even just watch a video like this one, remember, it all started with someone hunched over a fire thousands of years ago, staring at a black chunk of burnt wood and thinking, wait, what is that? And that one question changed everything.